every one of us here knows about the stunning success of the fundraise for Queen Solar College in Tonga on the 20th of March this year. Classrooms were destroyed and the buildings were damaged by Cyclone Gita, a natural disaster which no one had imagined and no one had predicted, and it hit the people hard. Collectively in MLC, we have raised a total of $23,635 in 10 minutes to help the school to recover from this devastating event that wrecked the very core of the students' access to education. Yes, our donation shows our sympathy for those suffering from financial assistance, and it helps. But is donation enough to express our empathy for those deprived of the same right and privilege as us in a different part of the world? Surely there's something more we can do to empathize with those who are less fortunate, because it is empathy that enables us to empower those around and build a better world for all. But let's be honest, how many of us really understand the difference between sympathy and empathy? Yes, sympathy is showing compassion, sorrow, or pity for the hardship that someone encounters. Well, many of us know that empathy is about putting yourself in the shoes of others. Well, let's use some example to better explain this. Say, a friend of yours tells you this: I've tried so many times, but I just can't get it right. I'm so bad at math. To make it feel better, we might say, look, at least you're good at drawing. Is this showing sympathy or empathy? Do we really putting ourselves in our friend's shoes and try to understand and empathize with her need for help or her cry for comfort? Here's another example. When one of your friends says, my boyfriend has broken up with me, we might say, at least you had a boyfriend and you were dating for 6 months. Well, I'm not asking you to put yourself in her situation, but let's try to understand one thing. She needs someone to empathize with her heartbreak, so try to listen and be there for her when she needs a company. I'm not saying that we must experience what others have had in order to be empathized with someone. It's about making a connection, a shared understanding between people. When someone is in pain or experiencing a distressing moment, what they often need is to be understood or to feel connected. Sometimes we tend to say things without really understanding the perspectives of others. Although sympathy is about being honest and heartfelt, empathy can forge a deeper and much more meaningful connection, ensuring a greater communication between individuals. Looking back to 2016, when I had the opportunity to work with kids from a less privileged background in China, I have come to understand the power of empathy. It was in winter and the temperature hits -5°C. I took a tour around the school and there were barely any kids wearing the winter coats on that bitter cold day. I sat down at one of the benches and chatted with a few kids in the school youth. I discovered that they were in the last year of primary school and none of them had left the village once. They have to earn their own lunch money and were expected to work to help out with the family finance after school. One of the boys said, I wish I could travel to a new place if we could afford it. Stunned by what he says, I desperately looked for words of sympathy to fill the air of awkwardness. Then I hear my own voice saying, look, at least you have this beautiful village. The boy remained quiet. None of us said a word since. Now I wish I could go back in time and tell him that I understand that there's a part of us want to discover new places and have new experiences. And it's okay if we can't afford it, but if he works hard enough, one day he could venture out his village and embrace a new experience. Instead, I failed to mutter any words that could potentially empower him. I failed to show my empathy for this little boy. So what can we do to develop our empathy? First of all, we need to understand the perspectives of others without making assumptions. We often care about ourselves and we tend to make assumptions on others. It's like when we walk past a homeless on the street, we make assumptions and cast judgment on the basis of their clothes and their age without even knowing the story behind each of them. So secondly, stop making judgments on others. We are unique. In other words, we are different from one another. So let's respect each other and embrace our differences. And let's be grateful about the uniqueness each of us brings to the world. And most importantly, we need to recognize the emotions of others and communicate it. While technology seems to bring us closer than ever, we are slowly drifting away from a real sense of empathy. It is time to put our phone away when we are having lunch with our family and friends and try to have real-time conversation. So pay attention to what others are saying and try to build that connection with them. So going back to what I said earlier in my speech, making a donation might not be the best way to express our empathy. What we really ought to do is to try to understand the emotions and perspectives of others and without making assumptions on others. So remember these 3 key points. Try to understand the perspectives of others without making assumptions. Stop making judgment about others. Recognize the emotions of others and communicate it. These will enable us to redefine, reignite, and re-energize the power of empathy within every one of us to build this world a better place for all. Thank you.